Packet Tracer Activity 3.5.5. Investigate the TCP, IP, and OSI models in action. In this activity, you're going to see how data is added to a protocol data unit as it travels between a web client and a web server. In Part 1, Step 1, we're going to examine some HTTP web traffic. So the first thing you're going to learn here is how to change from a real-time mode to a simulation mode. So for a real-time mode, this shows exactly what will happen as if you were in a real-time network environment. To demonstrate this, I'm going to open the web client here, and I'm going to go to the desktop, and I'm going to open the web client here. And we do have a web address we can go to, www.osi.local, and if I press go, we'll be able to see the web page. So I'm going to go ahead and close this. So that's real time. If I click simulation, this is going to bring up a simulation panel, and it'll show us each of the protocol data units as they make their way along the path between the client, the server, and back. The event type we're interested in here is the HTTP protocol. And if you look down here in the panel, HTTP is the selected protocol. We can change this by clicking the Edit filters and choosing IPv4, IPv6, miscellaneous, and choose which we want. In this case, HTTP is the only one checked. Let's reopen the web client, and we're going to go back to the web browser. Here, open a little bit bigger so we can see it. So I open the web browser, and once again, we're going to go to, what was it here? www.osi.local, and click go. You'll notice this time the web page does not appear, and this is because all we've done at this point is enter some information, but the protocol data unit has not been built. This will happen once we get the simulation to run. So there are two ways to capture and forward. One is to click this button here or this button as well. So I'm going to click here, and this will, one click will cause one event or one portion of the packet to be completed. So in this case, two events were triggered for the first capture. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to press this a couple of more times, but I want you to watch what happens. So this is shown that the web client has created the first PDU, protocol data unit. If I click the forward capture button, it takes that protocol data unit and sends it to the web server. I click again, and the web server sends it back to the client. If I press again, notice nothing happens because the protocol data unit request has completed. If I go back to the web client, we'll notice that the page has displayed appropriately. So now we're going to look at the events that have been generated. So I'm going to close the browser. So over here in the events list, now if you can't see all the columns here, you can grab the edge of this and pull it left and right. So we're going to look here at the type up here for the first event. And I accidentally hooked that to the side, so let me bring it out here again, pull it out. You'll notice here that there are two tabs across the top. One's the OSI model, and then there are some details about the protocol data unit. So we're looking here, inbound would be for the inbound packet to the device, or outbound packet. This is an outbound packet. I did it again. Because this is an outbound packet, we're going to see the information that's been added at the OSI layers onto that packet. So we here, in this particular case, we have layer 1. This is the physical layer. Layer 2, data link layer. Layer 3, the IP layer. And layer 4, the TCP layer. On this page, you can click on the different layers. In this case, on the outer layer or outbound layers, we can click on layer 7 and it will tell us what's happening here. In this case, we've sent an HTTP request to the server. Layer 4 tells us that we've sent some segment information with a sequence number, etc. If we actually look up here, we can see at layer 4 we have chosen a source port. This is the port used on the client, and the destination port, port 80. Port 80 being the HTTP port. Layer 3, we're going to have the IP information. Layer 2, we're going to have the MAC information. Let's look at the outbound PDU details information now. So this goes into detail the actual protocol data unit and how it's composed, the pieces that make up the PDU. The topmost portion of this window indicates the data link layer and the information that's stored here. So you will notice there's a thing called a preamble. This is information sent down the line to indicate to the other network interface card that a packet is coming. We'll then have the destination MAC address and the source MAC address. Moving onward, we're going to move up to the IP layer, and in this case, some of the more important information is going to be the source IP, the IP from the web client to the destination IP of the server. Moving up, we'll go to the TCP level, and we have the source ports and destination ports. And finally, we're going to have the HTTP request. This is at the layer 7 as shown back here under the OSI model. Let's look at some of the other events now. So we can just select a different event here. So the next event here, you'll notice, only has one of the layers utilized. So this is the layer of the actual physical layer. So this is the time that the client has actually taken that packet, stuck it into the NIC, and the NIC is sending it along the connection. You can examine each of the others as we go along here, watching what has happened with the packet. So in this particular case, the outbound packet has this information, the inbound packet has this information, and you should notice that the information here is somewhat familiar, but sometimes is not completely the same. So this will give you some ideas on how to better understand how these packets work. You also notice that in this particular event, we have an inbound protocol data unit and also some outbound details as well. So in part 2 of this exercise, we're going to be looking at some other protocols that are used during this request for the web page. We'll go down here to the event filter types. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to click the Show All None button. I think I clicked it twice accidentally. But what we want to do is show all of the events. So in this case, if I open this, everything should be shown. And you'll notice there are a series of other types of protocols being used here. So we have DNS being used, Domain Name Service, TCP, Transmission Control Protocol, as well as HTTP. So let's go ahead and look at the first DNS entry here. So we'll notice that with this DNS entry, we have a protocol data unit that's built. We're using the DNS protocol that happens to live at the application layer. If we look at the PDU details itself, if we go to the bottom here, the query here is it's requesting information about this particular website name. If I continue moving down these, so this particular protocol data unit, if I look at the out information, so this again is saying, hey, I want to know the the IP address for this DNS server. Actually, I have that backwards. This is the protocol data unit coming back from the server stating that here is the IP address of this web server. And then finally, this will get to the client with that same information so that then the web client can actually make the request to that particular port. And this is not the one it's doing. It will be doing it down here under the HTTP request here. So this destination IP happens to be for the www.osi.local web page. I'd recommend you spend some time going through and doing different simulations with these exercises as the course continues. You'll really pick up and begin to understand the details of what happens behind the scenes as information is transmitted across each of these networks. This ends this video.